Fellas, guys and gals, how are we all doing today? It is your boy Lunar, back again with another, you guessed it, boss tier list video. As you can already tell from the title, today we are going to be going over Elden Ring's brand new DLC, Shadows of the Erdtree. Now I'm not going to lie, this took me a lot longer than I was originally expecting, but the work is finally done, and your boy is ready to hit y'all with the definitive boss rankings for this DLC. Just to preface things here, I spent roughly 50 hours or so playing this, and I tried searching every nook and cranny I could for any boss fight I could find. I'm pretty confident that this is every boss available for this DLC, but also, this is Elden Ring, you know, who knows? Somebody might find a new boss fight a week from now that nobody's ever even heard of. We'll just have to wait and see. I'll also note that there's a lot of mini boss battles available that mostly consist of either old fights from the base game, or it's a fight against an NPC character. All of this stuff did not make it into the video. If From Software didn't give them the respect of putting a red bar across my screen, then they don't deserve the respect of being in this video. So I'm sorry to all the Furnace Golems, Tibia Mariner, and all the NPCs, but it didn't work out. I also did this with no summons or cheese at all, so every fight was all your boy. So I've got a pretty good feel for the combat in all of these. Alright, I'm done ranting here. Let's just get right into things with Shadows of the Erdtree, all bosses ranked easiest to hardest. Starting at number 30 here, bottom of the barrel, we have the Black Gold Knight. Now this boss is one of the very first encounters you have in the DLC, but he is also just a regular enemy that you typically see running around. There's honestly not much special at all going on with this fight. He doesn't have any magic or special abilities, just a sword and a crossbow to cover long and short ranges. His combos also don't get very extensive at all. He maybe gets off 2 or 3 swings at any given time. The hardest thing about this whole encounter is that he has a flask to heal some health, but there's still no sort of buffs that come along with it. It's still just a stand-up fight. Next at number 29, we have Cursed Blade Labyrinth. This dude is also super easy, just a normal mob fight. There's honestly not much to say about this one, just wait for his slash combos to finish and then show him who the Elden Lord really is. You know what I'm saying? Next at number 28, we have Jagged Peak Drake. There's nothing special or out of the ordinary about this, but he does have more health and hits harder than our last 2 entries. This is a battle that we're all already extremely familiar with from the base game, so it shouldn't give anybody any sort of problems. Next at number 27, we have Chief Bloodfiend. This is another extremely easy boss, but he gets a boost above the others because of the size of the arena and the fact he can deal blood loss damage during the fight. Still nothing super crazy though. He's actually just a normal mob that you already fight quite a bit on your way to the boss room, so you already get a bunch of practice before the real thing anyways. If for whatever reason you're struggling on this guy, try just taking in some stanching blouses to help alleviate the blood loss. Next at number 26, we have the Lamenter. This was a very easy fight. It felt like this guy barely even attacks. His big grand move is spawning in a bunch of versions of himself to make you lose track of him, but it doesn't take long at all for you to sniff out the real one and deal some damage. The hardest part about this whole thing is the other spawns can use magic on you, but it's still a pretty slow rate. It's not hard at all to maneuver around. Next at number 25 and number 24, respectively, we have Black Knight Garrow and Black Knight Edred. I'm grouping these two together because they're basically the same boss. These two are normal bosses that typically roam around, but since they're red bar fights, they get a little boost in health from the others. These are definitely some of the harder normal mobs roaming around as it is, since they hit a lot harder and have magic abilities to use as well, but in terms of boss fights, they're nothing special at all. I think the main reason they've gotten a boost this high up the list is honestly just because they're annoying. I mean, I see these guys just walking around and I don't even deal with it. I just go straight past them. I'm like, I do not want to fight them right now. Next at number 23, we have Dancer of Rona. This is technically an NPC style fight, but she has the red bar, so she makes the list. This is a really straightforward fight, but she gets a bump above the rest because of the length of her combos, fire magic, and she can also use a flask to heal herself mid-fight. If you need any help for this, I'd suggest getting one of the Flame Drake talismans for extra fire damage negation, but other than that, there's really not much you can do. Next, number 22, we have Ancient Dragon Man. This is another, you guessed it, NPC style fight. You actually fight this guy originally on your way to his lair, and then he gets the respect of having a red bar once he reaches cave. My first attempt at this, I didn't have any magic, so I had to get a lot closer to him, and it's honestly a bit hard since his sword has such crazy reach and the magic ability he has on it. Still though, once we refilled on the pots, he was no match for the old Unsheath. I had this dude in the blender. Next to number 21, we have Rakshasa. Is that another NPC fight? Yeah, you guessed it. This guy is almost the exact same as the last entries on the list, but the only edge he gets over the rest is that he has some decently long combos and he deals some pretty hefty bleed damage if you're not careful. Still the same thing though, he has a flask, he has a couple little shiny abilities he uses, but it's nothing hard at all. Next at number 20, we have Death Knight. Does anybody else get off-brand Nameless King vibes from this guy, or is it just me? He's definitely not on the level of that fight, but compared to the previous entries, he actually moves around quite a bit more, and has much more extensive magic usage. There's also multiple different versions of him on the map, each with a different set of moves. They still share the same elemental type though, so if you want to go in here with an extra advantage, just use the Bolt Drake talisman that helps negate lightning. Next at number 19, we have the Erdtree avatar. Now this is actually our first remembrance boss on the list, but this guy is honestly kind of a pushover. The things I found to be hard in this fight wasn't even necessarily because of the boss itself. It was because the mechanics of the fight just felt a bit wonky. First off, the range felt really bad. I found myself missing quite a lot of hits that felt like they should have landed. And if you're locked on the boss's head, it kind of makes the camera go all over the place because he's just out here spinning that sucker everywhere. This fight also has multiple phases, but they're all pretty much the same thing. There's no big ramp up in abilities, and he has super low health for each phase. I think there's like 4 or 5 in total or something, I don't quite remember, but they're all really easy. Next at number 18, we have Regalia and Ravela, the Great Red Bears. These are 2 separate fights, but they're both identical to one another, so I just grouped them together. This is a fight we're already used to from the base game, since there's other Rune Bears and Rune Bear boss battles from that, so they're not really reinventing the wheel much here, but I will say, I at least still found these to be harder than the bosses previously listed. That's why they've climbed all the way up to 17. I mean, come on, who likes fighting these? Nobody. Just get rid of every single animal mob in these games, and I would honestly be a lot happier of a person. Next at number 17, we have Count Ymir, Mother of Fingers. Now, Ymir himself ain't anything special at all. Dude's kind of a pushover. His main shtick is using a ton of magic powers, and none of them are ever really that punishing if you get hit by it. The main reason this guy gets a bump above the rest is because he spawns in little hand minions that are pretty annoying to deal with, and the fight is preceded by an NPC fight, which is honestly more of a fight than Count Ymir. But still, you have to make sure you're well enough to go into the Ymir fight immediately after it. This is almost like the only 2-phase fight in the game, honestly, like 2 full phase. Next at number 16, we have the Ghost Flame Dragon. This is also just another dragon fight, but he takes a lot less damage from hits, and he also deals blight damage on top of the fire damage dragons already do. I think this guy also spawns in multiple spots in the DLC, but I only found him here, and there was a ginormous fight going on at the same time, which was also another hindrance, because I couldn't go in without 15 other people attacking me. If you come across this guy, I'd honestly just hang out on the outskirts for a bit and let the dragon fight all the people for you, because he'll take care of the problem and take some damage in the process, which just makes your life easier. Next at number 15, we have Jory, Elder Inquisitor. This is another magic heavy boss that doesn't do much direct attacking, but the magic honestly feels relentless at times. The entire fight, they're constantly sending out projectile magic attacks, and also spawning in minions to help fight. Some of the minions even use magic too, which takes up even more of the playable space, but the most annoying one has to be this big slug thing constantly jumping in your face and completely body blocking Jory. Any boss fight with minions that you have to juggle is extremely annoying. These ones specifically disappear after they attack once, which is great, but Jory pumps them out pretty quick, not gonna lie. Overall, the boss itself is super squishy, and if you can get past the minions, it's really easy to get critical hits off on her back after magic attacks. Next at number 14, we have the Tree Sentinel. Now these guys, we all know them, we all love them. This is another base game boss, so we're all extremely familiar with fighting them, but this still doesn't take away from their strength. In terms of all of our previous entries, the Tree Sentinel is certainly a lot harder than all of them. And as if that wasn't enough, when you do encounter him, there's like a whole cavalry of 3 of them. I mean, sheesh, I wasn't expecting to do this fight back to back to back. Next at number 13, we have the Falling Star Beast. Like the Tree Sentinel, this is another returning boss from the base game, but I don't know why, I just always seem to struggle with these guys. He's got really fast combos and magic attacks that you have to try dodging at the same time. At this point in the game, he's pretty squishy, so you can deal a lot of damage and get stance breaks off, but personally, I am not a fan of these guys. I mean, they're just doing too much for your boy. He is moving around way too much. He lunges out of the way of my attacks, like the range is all off. It's just, I don't like it. Next at number 12, we have Golden Hippo. This is another boss that's just a regular mob that can be found throughout the map, but this red bar fight is a lot harder than the other ones you find. For starters, this dude is ginormous, and that makes it pretty hard to dodge his attacks. It also tends to throw your camera around because this dude uses up quite a bit of the arena. I mean, he's moving around. He also has a second attack phase where he deals magic damage, and some of these are even projectile attacks, so he doesn't even have to get close up to you anymore. Pretty much any fight with these big character models are just extremely annoying, honestly. Next at number 11, we have Ancient Dragon Senisax. This is also another boss we're familiar with from the base game, but unlike the other base game bosses, these guys were still already late game fights you had to deal with, so they were already crazy from that. Right off the bat, compared to normal dragons, the ancient dragons have a lot more health and take a lot less damage when attacked. Besides just that though, they deal magic damage on top of the fire damage dragons already deal. So that's just an extra layer of attacks you have to dodge. They also have less hitboxes than a normal dragon, which is extremely annoying for a big mob like this. I mean, it feels incomplete, honestly. I don't know why I can't run up to this dude and just attack his legs. Alright fellas, alright. We have finally reached our top 10 hardest bosses for Shadows of the Erdtree. As you can probably already tell, 90% of these are remembrance bosses, and that's for good reason. You can certainly tell with all these that more thought went into them than the rest. All of these, whether you found them to be easy or not, definitely take a lot more thought and precision than the rest. All the previous fights mentioned are pretty standard, but these remembrance bosses are truly From Software masterpieces. I mean, I don't know what else to say. They really know how to make some excellent fights. Enough of all this talk though. Next at our top number 10 boss fight, we have Meteor, Mother of Fingers. Unlike the Erdtree avatar, this is the first real challenge of remembrance bosses. This guy uses a huge variety of physical and magic attacks, but overall he moves pretty slow, which is a bonus. There's random bursts where he'll throw out like a quick 3-hit combo or something, but for the most part all of his actions are really slow buildups. That still doesn't take away from his sheer strength though. Most of his attacks deal a considerable amount of damage, and you can't really take a lot of hits without it costing you. In terms of his magic abilities too, most of them consist of AoE attacks that restrict the map, but I will say they've also got a pretty slow buildup that's easy to pick up the timing for. Next at our top number 9 boss fight, we have the Putrescent Knight. Like most of the remembrance bosses on here, this is more of a patience fight than anything, because he has some really long combos and you have really short windows to attack. With him being on a horse, he moves around sporadically the entire fight, and it really helps him maneuver out of attacking range. For the most part, this guy attacks pretty slow, but he does periodically throw in some quicker attacks like this rush ability with his horse. This boss also has magic abilities that he uses that does mainly all of his damage. Once you reach his second attack phase, these start to become more prevalent, and some of them even have 2-3 shot potential if you're not careful. The only advice I could really give for this would be to prioritize frost damage negation so that the magic abilities don't hit as hard. Next at our top number 8, we have Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. This is a pretty wild fight, mainly because of all the madness damage he deals. Madness doesn't deal that much damage at the time, but the madness effect stacks up really quick and can punish you extremely hard if you let it max out. Besides just the status effect though, he has some pretty drawn out combos that can trip you up on timing and can easily 2-3 hit you if you're not careful. I believe this is also the first boss on this list that has a complete one-shot potential if you're not careful. To help fight against the madness, you have to boost your focus, which can be done quickly with clarifying white cured meat, and you can also use clarifying blouses to alleviate the madness buildup. Next at our top number 7, we have Ramana, Saint of the Bud. For starters, this fight is extremely manageable. Her attacks are all really slow, and sometimes they don't even land when I feel like they really should. But in terms of boss fights, this is still one of the better ones in the DLC. She has numerous different combos with varying speeds of attack, and she also has a secondary attack phase that just adds in new stuff you have to dodge. The hardest thing to watch out for in this fight is definitely the magic abilities and the caterpillars. Those things are really fast and have some insane reach on them. Next at our top number 6, we have Bale the Dread. Now in terms of dragon fights, this is extremely hard. This is nothing in the ordinary. The biggest hindrance by far has to be the fact that you can only lock onto his head. Typically with dragon fights, they have 4 specific camera points where you can attack a certain spot of their body. But with this guy, that's not the case, and it leads to countless missed hits. I swear, half the time, even if you're close to one of his other body parts and swing on it, it just won't land. And even sometimes when you're trying to go for his head, I mean, homeboy moves around a lot. It's hard to get anything off. On top of just that though, he has multiple attack phases with physical and magic attack combos that can easily 2-3 shot you if you're not careful. And his speed is honestly pretty quick for his size. It's also worth mentioning that this fight has a summon inside the arena that's tied to a quest line, so you can bring someone in to help you, but I swear they don't really do a whole lot. It's mainly just going to be you versus Bale. Next at our tippity top number 5 hardest boss, we have Divine Beast Dancing Lion. This is a fight that's found pretty early on in the DLC, but this guy is certainly no pushover. This is another boss that has a lot of nonsense difficulty because of the camera and his character model, but it's difficulty nonetheless. So his character is designed almost to look like a big lobster, but you're not able to lock on to his entire back half, which leads to a lot of missed hits. Besides just that though, he has some pretty long combos with some very smartly placed timings in between. And during his second phase, he also deals a considerable amount of elemental damage. damage. He also fully has the 1-2 shot potential like all of our last top entries, so that's something to look out for. I would say you can bring in talismans or buff items to negate the elemental damage, but he periodically changes from lightning to frost, so if you want to go that route, you have to prioritize one or the other, or take up a bunch of inventory space for both of them. Next, our top number 4 hardest boss title goes to Commander Gaius. Now, any fight where you're up against someone on a horse instantly feels like a pain, but to make it even harder, this guy's riding a big old fat pig, and that damn near feels impossible to dodge. The pig is big, but homie gets up around and moves, that's for sure. Gaius is extremely fast and relentless with his attacks. Between him and the pig, it never feels like you have a second to catch your breath. He also deals a considerable amount of magic damage, whether that's a direct or AoE attack, that you're constantly trying to dodge. Something pretty neat about this fight though is that it actually lets you try fighting on horseback too, which was honestly pretty fun. I mean, I didn't beat him on horseback, but I tried it a couple times, and I wasn't hating life, I was actually enjoying it. But with that being said, the fight is definitely still a lot more manageable on the ground. You do a lot less damage on horseback, so it mainly just takes a lot longer. Next, our third hardest boss title goes to none other than Relana, Twin Moon Knight. This fight was the first of 3 fights that are just insane levels of insane. All of our top 3 fights on this list require just some immaculate levels of focus. Relana has some extremely long attack animations and very small windows of attack. Most of the time it seems like she's spinning in circles around you, so it helps if you try spinning circles around her as well, but there's never a rest period. I mean, we are constantly moving the entire time. On top of her base attacks, she's also constantly sending out glintstone sorceries that you have to dodge at the same time. Some of these even stack on top of each other too, so you have to dodge 2 attacks at once. She also has a secondary attack phase that really kicks up the magic damage with fire and ice. It's still pretty much the exact same fight as before, but she has a lot more punishing 1-2 shot potential. Next, our second hardest boss title goes to Mesmer the Impaler. Like Relana, Mesmer gives you absolutely no time at all to attack. The grace windows for you to do anything are extremely small. It's almost like you have to assert yourself into the fight and just tank some damage, because it never feels like there's a free moment to take a comfortable swing at him. His combos are also very long, and he can change the patterns of attack mid-combo to really keep you guessing. Sometimes the last hit of a combo is in the middle, so it makes you think you're good to swing, but he still has another 2-3 hits to go through, and then you just get locked in the blender. He also deals a considerable amount of fire damage the entire fight, whether that's direct, projectile, or AoE attack. On top of all the regular attacks, he also has multiple different one-shot abilities that'll completely end the run if you're not careful. Mesmer also has a second attack phase that just builds onto the first phase attacks and makes an already hard fight even crazier. Besides just Mesmer, you also have to deal with all the snakes he's throwing at you that really close off the map. There's nowhere you can run to get a free second to heal or do anything. I'd also just like to mention that I technically beat this guy 3 total times. The first 2 times I got his health bar down to literally an invisible amount of health, but he was still up walking around like nothing's wrong and was able to kill me. Are you serious? Oh! Both times it happened, it was literally the biggest punch in the gut ever. I mean, especially after the second time I beat him, I thought I was genuinely gonna go insane. I mean, I could not take it. Alrighty folks, all frickin' righty. We are here. We have finally made it to our top number 1 hardest boss in Shadow of the Erdtree. If you have already played through the DLC yourself, then this is obviously no surprise. But our number 1 hardest boss undeniably goes to Radahn, Promise Consort. This fight sucked. When I say this fight sucked, I mean this fight really sucked. I damn near faced a whole existential crisis while fighting Radahn. I mean, the whole experience was honestly abysmal. I wouldn't wish this fight on my worst enemy, and I don't even know if I ever want to do it again. First off, I just want to start by saying I'm a big fan of these Souls games, and I have a deep appreciation for the thought that goes into designing these bosses. I mean, they are truly incredible. The best way I can describe a boss fight in Souls games is it's like an expertly timed dance with 2 partners, you know, you and the boss. The boss is leading, and you're just following along trying to see where you fit in the equation, you know? The beginning of any fight seems completely unreal, but after a few tries, things just start to slow down and the patterns start to make sense, you know? You start to see the openings where you fit in to attack or heal. With all that being said, this entire fight made absolutely no sense to your boy. Wheeze was not dancing. I literally had to switch builds 3 different times because I could not figure out what to do to beat him. I was using the same dual katana build the entire DLC, but I had to throw all of that straight in the garbage because I just could not do enough damage for it to be worth it. This build I used to beat him, I actually got from watching Distortion 2's stream, and it definitely helped out a lot, but even still, this took me damn near 100 tries or so with all the buff and damage. For starters, he easily 1-2 shots you with any attack. I mean, when I say you have to be perfect, you have to be perfect for this entire fight. There is no room for error. The beginning phase of this fight is the closest we get to dancing the entire time. After a while, you can start to pick up the moves and telegraph things pretty easy, but I swear, no matter what, I always get hit at least a few times. Sometimes the same situation will play out, but one run I'll get hit, and then the next run I'm totally fine. I'll try to show on screen what I'm talking about, but no matter what, I could not escape the first phase without taking at least some damage. The attacks are also brilliantly timed out. I mean, he'll throw a 4-swing combo at you, and each swing will have a different timing for dodging it. It's a lot to keep up with. Some combos also start the exact same, but they can end 2 completely different ways. He can just on the fly switch up how he's going to attack, and it feels like you only have a split second to react. His size also doesn't do you any justice this fight, especially when you're super close up to him. He towers over your character model to the point where it feels like your camera is just in the floor sometimes. Moving on to the second phase, it feels like this comes up a lot quicker than in other fights, so you're spending a majority of the time fighting the harder fight. Remember the dance thing I was saying earlier? There is no dance here at all. I fought this guy 419 times, and at no point did the second phase feel like it was starting to make sense. To be honest with you, I feel like I got lucky more than anything. I mean, if I didn't complete it on that run, I could have easily been there another 100 tries. The second phase, for the most part, is a mirror of the first phase, with an overwhelming amount of holy damage. Every attack is followed up by a holy AoE attack, and it literally never feels like you have a free moment to do anything. You're just holding on for dear life the entire time. He also had a lot of projection style attacks that fake you out into thinking he's gonna attack until he actually does. And even all the projections do their own damage, so the final real hit typically just seals the deal and sends you back to the staircase. This fight is the hardest boss I've ever fought in any game ever. I mean, I never thought this kind of challenge could even be humanly possible. I've got no clue how they step things up from here. I mean, I do not want to possibly even imagine what a fight designed to be harder than this would look like. I will have nightmares from this experience for the next week easily. Well folks, that was our number 1, and that's gonna about do it here for the boss tier list video. Again, I really tried to find every fight I could, but if there's anything I left out, feel free to comment down below and let me know. Also, if there's any changes you would have made to the list, comment down below too and let me know. I'd love to hear them. I'll also be posting a video with every full fight, no summons, if anyone's interested in checking those out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Your boy really appreciates it. Thanks for coming and stopping by. I also have some other tier list videos posted that you might be interested in too, so go check the channel and see what's going on there. But yeah, that's about it folks. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Lunar, and welcome to Bound.